Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Hey, another week is here. Another month is here. Happy February. By the way, if you got a Valentine, have you got your gift yet? Just saying, put it out there. Little candy, little card, little flowers. Get ready. Be ready for it. What are you? Let's get that thing going. Hey, great show coming up here. In a couple of minutes, we'll talk with Matt Stevens of Illini guys. Illinois basketball now 11 straight wins, and Keaton Waggler going from a 3-star, maybe now to All-American. Big win at Nebraska. We'll talk with Matt about that. And then a bit on the other side of the spectrum right now, Syracuse basketball. And Mike Waters is going to join us here in just a few moments talking about this Syracuse team that really just trying to find its way to get some traction. Tough schedule coming up. And while we're seeing an Illinois team ascending, a Syracuse team really struggling to keep up in the ACC and really among the major college basketball players where the pool that they're used to swimming in. We'll talk about that with Mike here coming up. So great show on the way. Some great guests later on too. We're talking some NIL stuff, talking transfer portal. A lot of great guests this week. Be sure to stick around for that. Let's get first to our headlines. And as they say, and then there were none, as in coaching vacancies in the NFL. Arizona filling the last spot on the coaching carousel dance card by tapping Mike LaFleur to be their top dog next season. Packer fans, calm down. Mike, not Matt. Mike LaFleur is Matt LaFleur's younger brother. Matt, the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, and now Mike, head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Mike has been the Rams offensive coordinator the last 3 seasons. He helped Matt Stafford and the Rams offense put up a league best 30.5 points per game, helped Stafford throw for more than 4,700 yards and a league best 46 touchdown passes this season. In case you missed it over the weekend, Arizona, best start ever now in program history as we stay in Arizona and shift to college basketball. The Wildcats getting win number 22 to start the year against cross-state rival ASU, 87-74. Another college basketball story, again, we talked about number 9, Illinois. Their win streak is now 11 games and avenging their only Big Ten loss of the year by taking down 5th-ranked Nebraska. The Cornhuskers, back-to-back losses, they're achieving their highest ranking in program history. 78-69 was the final. How good is this Illini defense? Well, they held the Huskers to just 4 made field goals in the first 13 minutes of the second half to break open a close game. Keaton Waggler, 28 points, the outstanding freshman to pace the offense. We'll talk more about him. Remember how Florida head coach Todd Golden talked about Charles Bediaco's eligibility at Alabama 10 days ago? He said the Gators were just going to beat him anyways. After Bediaco returned from a flirtation with pro ball, G League, all that, he was pro. Now he's back in college mid-year at Alabama. Well, the Gator players made sure the coach was true to his word on Sunday. Florida routing the Tide 100-77 and did most of the damage inside. Just to put an exclamation point on the cake, Florida scored, are you sitting down? Florida scored 72 points in the paint as the Gators front court accounted for 61 of those points. They've now won 5 straight against the Tide. Okay, big day today. WNBA and the Players Association are meeting in New York for their first in-person bargaining session involving players since October, so according to sources telling ESPN. This meeting, many believe, could be pivotal in whether a new collective bargaining agreement is reached or if players decide to strike. Sources say the union's grown increasingly frustrated the league hasn't formally responded to its most recent proposal that was submitted around Christmas, but those sources also say a strong debate has now emerged within the 7-member executive committee, which the WNBA union player body authorized in December to call a strike when necessary. According to multiple sources, one group says that now is the time to fundamentally alter the league's revenue sharing model, and players shouldn't compromise further until they feel comfortable with the new system. Hey, and by the way, in case you missed it on Friday night, Unrivaled that has played every single game in Miami at its home arena. They're built on a soundstage there in the city. Took their game on the road to Philadelphia and had more than 21,000 in the house. They broke the arena record for a pair of unrivaled 3-on-3 games there. This is the arena that hosts the NBA 76ers and the NHL's Philadelphia Flyers. And so afterwards, team owner or league ownership said, yes, we plan to expand this and go more on the road next year. We've been telling you for months that unrivaled plans to do something really big in 2027. We hope you finally will believe us. This was huge. What a huge night for that just league, just in the second year, what they're doing. It's pretty impressive. Let's get back to that story we talked about a moment ago right now. College basketball. Boy, this was huge. What a huge weekend. Number 3, Michigan going into Michigan State, the number 7 team in the country, beating them on the road in a great matchup on Fox Friday night. And then yesterday, another top 10, Illinois, number 9 in the country, going in a halftime deficit, and they beat Nebraska at their place. First Cornhuskers loss, number 5 in the country. Matt Stevens joining us now from Illini, guys. We're bugging you guys a lot, but boy, a lot going on with Illinois sports right now. You're there in Lincoln yesterday. What was that atmosphere like? Man, that crowd was raucous, but Illinois was really impressive in the second half.
For a lot of different reasons, it was my first trip to Pinnacle Bank, and I really enjoyed the atmosphere because it seemed like there was a horseshoe of students around the court, similar to how State Farm Center is kind of is kind of operated in terms of a student section, and they got after it. It was a sellout, obviously, because Nebraska's 20-1 going into that game, and it was a big game for if you want to hang a banner to win the Big Ten title, which if you're Brad Underwood, that still matters to you. And so it was a huge game in that regard. It was a rematch game in which Illinois, started its now 11-game winning streak after having won the game in Nebraska after that loss in Champaign to Nebraska. So it was kind of a prove it that you've improved on the defensive end and gotten a lot smarter and gotten a lot more mature since that loss to Nebraska, which felt like a 20-point loss, even though it was a 3-point loss, right? Because of how Nebraska shot it out of the gate. And I just felt like defensively, and I wrote about it on IlliniGuys.com, like I felt defensively Illinois did themselves a service by saying, hey, we've checked these boxes even without Kylan Boswell, and we've gotten better and more mature and more physical, and we're able to put length out on the court that I don't think any other college basketball team can replicate. Maybe the only one is the team you mentioned, and that's Michigan. And then both of those teams face each other for the only time in the regular season finale in State Farm Center in Champaign, right before the Big Ten tournament starts. That game may decide who wins the Big Ten regular season championship. So, but Illinois, I thought, did a really, really good job of understanding that Nebraska is going to come in waves with you on the perimeter, but they really silently do a lot of their killing inside the paint and at the free throw line. And Illinois just took all of that away with their length and their ability to defend the rim and all the things that they can do from a lineup standpoint, even without Kylan Boswell, and held Nebraska to under 70 points, which I didn't think was going to be possible. And I thought Brad Underwood said it best, which is I think this team has toughness, and I think this team communicates, and it might be one of the tougher and better communicating teams he's had in a long, long time at Illinois.
Wow. And in Nebraska, very physical team. To your point, Kylan Boswell being out 4 games now, that their best defender or the best wing defender has been out, and yet they're 4-0 in those games. You mentioned 11-game win streak. And you mentioned the length as well. I was looking at the starting lineup. So 6'6", 6'7", 6'7", 6'10", 7'1", and then another 6'9" guy off the bench, another 7'2" guy off the bench. I mean, they really are incredibly long. And I think they're a tough matchup. And when they're connecting the way they are defensively, just watching some of the switching, when they kind of changed some things up in the second half and shut down the 3-point shot by Nebraska, it was impressive to watch, and give them credit.
Fred Hoiberg mentioned the fact that 7-2 Zvonimir and Revizovic, like the new Revizovic, like Big Z, is second in the Big Ten in block shots, and he comes off the bench.
Wow.
Like that's just stupid. And he knew their length was going to be a problem if they couldn't consistently hit, shots from beyond the arc. And they went 4 of 15 in the second half from beyond the arc. And then at that point, if you're Nebraska, okay, now we got to go get something to stem this offensive tide we're stem this offensive lull that we have. And they weren't able to do it because Illinois was able to put a lineup out there when they want to have Keaton Waggler take a breather, where everybody in the lineup is 6'7" or bigger. And they literally put a lineup out there, Larry, in the first and second half, where David Mirkovic, a 6'7" forward, is your point forward and bringing the ball up to give Keegan Waggler a break. What I
Wow.
think makes Illinois really, really dangerous is that when Kylan Boswell gets back, they're not going to have that makeshift David Mirkovich is bringing the ball up offense. They're now going to have a guy that before he got injured was doing all the dirty work for Keaton Waggler because he's not asked to do that as a freshman. And so I just never really believed when I looked at the schedule that when you saw at Purdue, at Nebraska, and at Michigan State, that Illinois would have a chance to go 3 for 3. I sat next to somebody yesterday at Pinnacle Bank and literally said before the tip, it's kind of a freebie for Illinois, right? Because I looked at those 3 road games and thought, just get one, right? And then Bam will come back and everything will be fine. Illinois has a chance to go 3 for 3. And if they do that, I don't see any reason why their road in an NCAA tournament doesn't start in St. Louis. And it really takes into account the idea that Illinois could really have a nice regional road in this NCAA tournament if they take care of business and then get Kylan Boswell back.
It feels a bit like it did back in 2005 when they all stayed close. Indy, St. Louis, Final Fours in Indianapolis this year. You mentioned Keaton Waggler, and the legend grows. 9 days ago, he scored 46 points at Purdue. You were at that game, the ever by a Mackey visitor. We'll talk about more about that a bit later. And then he comes back and sets a record that the first player ever to score 25 or more in back-to-back road games at top 5 teams, 28 yesterday. How good is Keaton Waggler? He doesn't make any mistakes. Everything he does.
So as we're recording this, Larry, and as it will be, broadcasted, Keaton Waggler will turn 19 years old tomorrow. He's not even 19 yet. No. It's not even his 19th birthday yet. And I remember that's the image that kept going into my head at Mackey Arena was this kid's not even 19 years old and he's acting like an NBA veteran, getting Illinois through this ball game. And Matt Painter literally kind of said it. He goes, look, we made 15 threes. We shot almost 60% from the field and we turned it over 2 times. You win that game. Every single time you win that game. And then Brad Underwood's counter to that is, but I have Keaton Waggler and you don't. And the fact of the matter is that Braden Smith, who's been in this league and has more assists than anybody who's ever played in the Big Ten, literally says, well, they won that game because of him, because he's a lottery pick. And I know what that looks like. And so I do think that this kid acts like he's 25 and has a chance to be the first ever freshman to be Big Ten Player of the Year. There's really no doubt in my mind. And quite frankly, I think everybody in preseason kind of knew that Illinois quietly thought Keaton Waggler was really, really good, but they never thought that this would happen. And I think that it's kind of like when you allow a shooter to get hot and then he just starts making everything. From a confidence level standpoint, I think in November and December, teams allowed Keaton Waggler to continue to grow that confidence. And now it's just a natural thing that he's going to drop 25. He dropped 28, Larry, at Nebraska and had 5 at halftime. And nobody seemed to really be concerned about what was going on with Keaton Waggler because that's going to come. And I think their big concern going into this stretch, again, without Kylan Boswell, was they were going to ask Keaton Waggler to do so much more defensively. And I asked Brad Underwood from an energy standpoint, are you worried about the gas tank kind of being lower with Keaton Waggler? And I think they feel like, Keaton Waggler has almost advanced his NBA draft stock by being able to show what kind of defender he can be, what kind of facilitator he can be, while also dropping 46 at Mackey and 28 at Nebraska. And I just think from an all-around standpoint, there's 15 NBA scouts that were at Pinnacle Bank Arena on Sunday, and the reason was because Keaton Waggler was there. There was no other reason for them to be there.
Yeah, and Fox is getting smart already during that game. They were promoting. You can watch Keaton Waggler this Saturday when Illinois plays at Michigan State. He's that type of player. And guess what? He's not on ESPN. Sorry, guys. He's on Fox, CBS, FS1, BTN. He's fun to watch. You were a busy guy over the weekend as well. 2 coaches leaving Illinois, special teams coach going to Ohio State, the defensive coordinator, Aaron Henry, going to Notre Dame. Can you briefly tell us kind of how that came about here on the 1st of February?
Quickly, the Robbie Dishert thing happened because, believe it or not, even though Ohio State's been as dominant as they are in the Big Ten, they've not had a special teams coordinator since 2019. Specifically, they've tried to do it with 2 what essentially would be graduate assistants and kind of behind the scenes staffers. Ryan Day has elected now to kind of up the ante with his coaching staff and have a special teams coordinator. And Robbie Disher fit that bill because he has that reputation coming from Georgia, coming from Willie Fritz, his operation at Tulane, that he is one of the best at kind of coordinating. Not only Robbie would be the first to tell you that, well, like when he coached David Alano at Illinois, like he would just kind of clap and go, "Good kick, David." Like, but his ability to kind of do special teams in terms of units, in terms of coverage, in terms of kick return, what he was able to do with Hank Beatty, Ohio State wanted that, so they got Robbie Disher. Aaron Henry's situation is really, really unique in the sense that it happened in less than a week. Notre Dame lost its defensive backs coach. I'm going to try to detail this as quick as I can. Notre Dame lost its defensive backs coach to the Baltimore Ravens and Jesse Mentor's new staff last week. So in the matter of a couple of days, Marcus Freeman put together a list of people that he wanted to talk to. Jay Valila, actually the defensive coordinator at Oklahoma, was one of them and actually did talk to them. He then got a recommendation from his first-year head defensive coordinator, Chris Ash, that, hey, maybe Aaron Henry will want to come over here.
Okay.
Chris Ash was Aaron Henry's defensive coordinator at Wisconsin when Brett Bielema was the head coach of the Badgers, and Chris Ash specifically recruited Aaron Henry to Wisconsin way back when. So they have a connection there. If there's anybody that Aaron Henry feels like is as big a mentor in his life as Brett Bielema, it would be Chris Ash. You also have a defensive-minded head coach in Marcus Freeman. So there's a lot of cooks in that kitchen, which is what Marcus Freeman wants. He wants there to be a collaboration in the game plan, and then Chris Ash will call it. Notre Dame agreed to basically match what Aaron Henry was making in his 2025 season, which is almost $1 million. Aaron Henry made $900,000 last year to be their defensive backs coach. There's no salary cap on coaching salary, so like, we can do whatever we want. And Aaron Henry brings a lot of attractiveness in terms of defensive back development, and then his ability to go recruit his native area of Florida, specifically South Florida, in what he's done with that Illinois program and bringing those kids to Illinois. I do think Notre Dame's going to now have, which obviously everybody knows Notre Dame is a nationally recruiting brand, but they need, I think, an injection of South Florida talent, and they know they do. And I think that's another thing that they bring with Aaron Henry. And also from the standpoint of Aaron Henry, well, why would you take a demotion, Aaron? Because you're not going to call the defense at Notre Dame. There's at least 20 different head coaches in the FBS right now that have had no experience calling an offense or calling a defense right now who are FBS head coaches. So Aaron Henry, from a career standpoint, can maybe do what a Dabo Sweeney, a Shane Beamer, Mario Cristobal can do. And if you can recruit, if you can put a staff together, if you have a good resume, somebody might give you a head coaching job later on in life in the FBS. It's kind of what Aaron Henry's banking on. And I do think that Aaron Henry is going to see an uptick in the players that he can go get, especially in South Florida, by wearing the ND instead of the block I. And I think that will happen for him.
Yeah, and he just aligns himself with one of the top brands in college football name in terms of that's great for your resume with a coach who the NFL likes. So that's a positive. And you look at the defensive backs, we're going to see one on Sunday. Devin Weatherspoon, who was a zero-star kid, and they made it into a top a fifth round number 5 pick overall in the draft. Kirby Joseph, Sidney Brown,
Juan Martin, all those kind of guys are Aaron Henry guys.
Yeah, it's impressive stuff. Matt, great stuff. We know you're super busy, and so we appreciate you taking the time right now. Great stuff on IlliniGuys.com. And look, Illinois basketball looks like they may be for real here. So we'll be calling on you again to get some more analysis.
My friend Kent Brown used to always say that in the 04-05 season, the NCAA tournament was bus trips, and it looks like Illinois might have bus trips in the NCAA tournament, and we all know how much that is a big deal. And I think this team has a chance to make a really, really deep run.
Yeah. They look like the past couple of weekends, and we were looking at the schedule. They're on Fox or CBS every weekend the rest of the way. So Keaton Waggler may need to get wear like some kind of wig and a disguise. It's just like that 05 Illinois team. They were rock stars, couldn't go anywhere. Keaton Waggler is about to be a rock star, I think, especially the age of social media. Everyone's going to know who this guy is. Matt Stevens, Illini Guys. Appreciate you, man. Be safe.
Not a problem. Have a good one, Larry.
All right, thanks. Matt Stevens with IlliniGuys.com. And talking about the Illinois win over Nebraska. They're now tied with Michigan atop the Big Ten, 10-1. And as he mentioned, they're going to play here end of the month in Champlain. Their only meeting that, like, maybe for a number 1 seed, maybe for the Big Ten title by then. And then, of course, again, that changes the coaching staff. Aaron Henry, the defensive coordinator, going to Notre Dame So a hole now for Brett Bielema and a Notre Dame coaching staff gets stronger in South Bend. Okay, quick timeout. We've got more to come, including, hey, we'll look ahead to a great moment of all on this Monday and much more on the Sports IQ.
Fans of big sports radio and sports spectacular podcasts have a new home on the Chief Sports Network. Find your favorite programs and content all in one place by downloading the Chief Sports app in your mobile device. Created in South Carolina, the Chief Sports Network is the home of an expanding network of live and podcast format programming. It is also the home of one of the leading national college football podcasts, JC and Morgan, hosted by ESPN's Mike Morgan and 24/7 Sports' JC Sherbert. Download the Chief Sports app for free and find all of your favorite programming under one easy umbrella. Thanks to all of our markets for your loyal support of Big Sports Radio and our Sports Spectacular podcast, and we look forward to connecting with you anywhere in the world on the Chief Sports app.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Great stuff there with Matt. And boy, it's funny. You do think the coaching carousel would end, right? With all the crazy stuff that was happening in December in the college game that shows you that things still happen. You know, we talked about, we haven't seen many coaches, I should say, go from college to the NFL because of the way the college calendar is set. By the time the NFL season is over and these decisions are made, coaches in college have already locked things in. But again, Jesse Minter, the former Michigan coordinator who followed Jim Harbaugh to the LA Chargers, now becoming the head coach in Baltimore as he assembles his staff late, pulling from the college ranks. And so the domino effect now continues and right now lands on Illinois space, as it turns out. So Brett Bielema, you're up. You're on the clock. So much more to come there. And as we get into football and getting countdown again, once again, we'll talk a little Super Bowl here in a second because the big game's coming up in Santa Clara, California, just outside San Francisco. As you're going right there down the interstate, you can see it right there just to the east of the interstate right there, Levi Stadium. It'll be the Seahawks and the Patriots. Some NBA news. Could yesterday have been LeBron James' farewell to Madison Square Garden? The Lakers taking on the Knicks. A New York kind of night as the Knicks ran away in the second half, 112-100, getting the win over King James and the guys in purple. Hey, by the way, New York, we've been ripping on them, but they've quietly won 6 straight games. Maybe they heard us talking about them. And in case you missed it, Sunday, UConn, the ladies were actually tied at halftime of a game. Yeah, the Lady Huskies and Tennessee knotted at 42 at the half of the game played in Hartford, but the second half was all UConn. They outscored the Lady Vols 54-24 to take a 96-56, make that 96-66 win. 30-point margin makes it the second worst loss in Tennessee history, behind a 31-point loss to Texas way back in 1984. That was it was a thrilling end to watch in the first half, and it just was painful in the second half. UConn just abused the three-pointer there at the buzzer to end the third quarter. It was just a dagger. You could just see the Tennessee players deflated as they went back to the bench. All right, we mentioned again, it's coming up on Super Bowl. Yes, all the commercials are out there, all the chatter. Bad Bunny got some wins last night in the Grammys. The one-liner, Puerto Rico's part of America. Shh, don't tell them. Yeah, it was a lot of jokes there in LA. But some trivia points for you as we amp up for the big game on Sunday. Care to guess how many tickets were scalped for the very first Super Bowl? How about $12? The tickets were priced at $6. Scalpers were doubling their money. Imagine $12 today probably won't buy you a Coke at the Super Bowl. Sunday, by the way, there will not be an empty seat in the house for the big game. The first game in the LA Coliseum had 30,000 unsold tickets, even at $6 a head. Folks just didn't want to go. And we all know about the controversy between Bad Bunny being the halftime act, but do you know who the first singer was that performed in halftime of a Super Bowl? It was not the first one. It was later. 1970, Carol Channing was the halftime singer for the game between the Vikings and the Chiefs that was won by Kansas City. So there you go. We've come a long way in the 60-year history of the Super Bowl. All right, we take a short trip pass this commercial break to Syracuse and talk a little Orange basketball with Mike Waters up next here on the Sports IQ.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Obviously, we talked about February's here, talking a lot of college basketball. And, last week we discussed a lot of ACC. One team we did not talk about is Syracuse. Listen, the post-Boeheim era has just not been quite what the fans of the Orange are used to. Joining us here, veteran the Syracuse beat writer for the Post-Standard and Syracuse.com, Mike Waters. Mike, good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Larry.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, first we could talk college basketball till the cows come home, as they would say. But this Syracuse team right now, I mean, obviously when you lose a legend, and we've seen this across the ACC with so many legendary championship-winning coaches deciding they've had enough, there's going to be some shell shock. And it seems like Syracuse, 3 years later, still has not gotten over Jim Boeheim no longer being on the sideline.
You're right. It's been a tough 2.5, almost 3 years now for new head coach Adrian Autry, who followed Jim. But really, it's not the same sort of drop off from legend to next guy that we've seen, over the course of history at other places. It's not like, Dean Smith to Bill Guthridge or, Adolph Rupp to Joe B. Hall or John Wooden to Gene Bart. Was it Gene Bardo that followed the Wizard? I think it was. Because there's just a whole confluence of events that would have been taking place. Part of it is Adrian Autry takes over right as NIL starts to dominate the landscape. And Syracuse, I think, was a little slow on the preparedness for NIL, found themselves behind a lot of ACC schools and have yet to really fully catch up. And I think that's been a big problem. I think it was a problem with last year's team that had a losing record at 14-19. The other thing, too, that there had been a slow but steady decline around the Syracuse program, even when the legend was still coaching. Syracuse has not been ranked in the top 25 since the 2018-19 season.
Wow.
I know. I tell it to people. I always wait for the reaction because you're so used to Syracuse being a national power. But it's really, Jim, to his credit, did a great job of keeping the program relevant and competitive, even when they were sliding outside the top 25. There was a Sweet 16 run in 2018. There was another Sweet 16 run in 2021. So they were around. They were still in the nation's consciousness. But to see it up close and watch it day to day, you sort of knew this isn't the same sort of success that they've had over the previous 3 decades. Going back to the 80s, with Sherman Douglas, Derek Coleman, and then the 90s with John Wallace and that Final Four, and of course Carmelo Anthony, and even through the 2010s. And there was a lot of different reasons for it. I think one of the root causes is, leaving the Big East didn't help the basketball program. I think it helped the athletic program at the university, but it didn't help the basketball program per se. You lost a lot of your brand identity, made it a lot tougher to recruit kids out of New York and New Jersey when all their road games are going to be south of the Mason-Dixon line. If you're going to have to go there and, play all your road games there, then all of a sudden you're losing kids, and you lost kids to, schools that stayed in the Big East. So it's been an experience here. They've missed out on the NCAA tournament now for 4 straight years. The last 2 of Jim Boeheim's tenure and the first 2 of Red Autry's. And, as of right now, they are well outside the tournament picture. So, like I said, interesting times.
Yeah. But I think you're right. Syracuse, I think Boston College is another that's one of those former Big East teams now in the ACC that, like you said, lost a bit of the identity, if you will. And
throw Pittsburgh in the mix.
And Pittsburgh's another one, too, that you're exactly right. That I think that it, again, is one of those that rich, fantastic athletic tradition, solid fan base. I mean, you've got all the pieces, but it's just not there, like you said, with NIL and transfer portal. And I think, again, it puts more emphasis, we've talked about now, the Kurt Signetti effect, that it's even more so when you have younger coaches coming in, like a Hubert Davis that reaches the Final Four, or a John Shire reaches the Final Four. There are other programs. I mean, Syracuse being one of them. So, okay, wait a minute. Where's our Final Four? And it doesn't quite work like that.
No, it certainly doesn't. And it certainly doesn't when in this era of NIL.
Right.
That it's, coaching still matters. Recruiting matters in terms of, relationships and everything. But really now, kids want to go where they're going to get paid like anybody else. The TV station in another state offers Larry Smith twice as much money. Larry Smith is saying goodbye to Lexington, as much history as Lexington has and all this stuff. And I think that's hurt Syracuse. I've talked to we don't have a real good idea of exactly how much NIL money Syracuse has in comparison to the other ACC schools. I tried to talk to people who would have a pretty good idea of where they might rank, people outside the school, people around the ACC or around college basketball. And the general opinion is anywhere between 8th and 12th.
Wow. Okay. That's low. That's low.
Well, it's low if your fans think you should be finishing in the top 4 in the league.
Right.
Well, okay, you're trying to do that on a budget that's not the same as some other schools. It's you can compete. You got to find guys. You got to play a little money ball. Find the guys that'll fit and get you over the hump and, stuff like that. And they've done a better job this year than they did last year. They brought in some guys that have really, played above their profile. William Kyle III, a center that was the 3rd string center at UCLA last year, is, playing really well for Syracuse as a starter this year and was just named to the Naismith's Defensive Player of the Year watch list. So that helps. But, if you've watched the movie Moneyball, if you really know the inside story of those Oakland A's, they had a young pitching staff that they didn't pay any money to. So, it made the general manager look like a genius when he put in all these other guys around him. Well, that's hard to do. That's really hard to do. And not everybody has the benefit of that. So it's been interesting this year. It's 13-9 overall. And they are about to hit a stretch of schedule where they're going to play the best teams in the ACC here over the next 2-3 weeks.
Wow. And I think, and maybe you'll agree with me on this. So we're talking with Mike Waters, Syracuse basketball, a longtime beat writer for the Post-Standard and Syracuse.com. I really feel like that there, because we had so many coaches leave the game, Roy Williams, Kay, Mike, Jay Wright, Tony Bennett, a lot of the ACC guys,
Sure.
Aranega just last year, Leonard Hamilton, no Final Fours, but was always right there. And it's 20 win program year in, year out. I think you take that with NIL, with transfer portal, all these things converging at the same time. It really is creating kind of a new world of college basketball, where again we've talked before on the show of the 20 Final Four slots post COVID. There have been 18 different teams. Only 2 teams have repeated. So there's this chance now for all these other it's kind of crazy, right? All these other coaches, younger coaches, getting a chance to come in and do it their way. And like you said, they can come in and make their own name, the way that Syracuse may have, the way that Pitt may have in the past, or Boston College, et cetera. Is there a way for these teams right now that are trying to play catch up? How do they, other than just throwing in millions of dollars from boosters, is there a way to get back and be competitive and get back into that world of where you're among the upper echelon of college basketball right now?
Yeah, I'm not sure. To be honest, I don't know. I do know this. I think it all starts with the money at this point.
Yeah.
I think college sports now, it's like NIL is basically, the college version of free agency. And, you don't see a lot of free agents in any pro league too many times go to the place that offered them less money.
Right.
Now, maybe you do every once in a while if you get lucky and like someone will go because, I'm going to play more here. Or these people are going to use me as a point guard as opposed to a shooting guard. And I think I need to be a point guard to make the NBA. So, okay, I'll go there for a little less money because they're going to play me at the point. Or they're not going to play me at center. I don't want to play center. I want to face the basket and shoot threes. So, every once in a while you might get, be able to steal a kid that way. And, you mentioned all those big name coaches that have left the game and retired. I think some of those coaches might have had the ability to convince a kid, hey, listen, I know we're not offering you quite as much as State U, but you get to play for me. And I've sent this many guys to the NBA as opposed to an unproven younger guy wherever. So maybe that's another way. Now these schools don't have that same advantage. I don't think it matters too much at Duke. We know they're well funded. Josh Shire's fine.
Right.
But, at these other schools, what's happening? You have to fund that new guy.
Yeah.
If you don't fund that new guy, then you're really going to experience a drop off.
Yeah.
I think that was, I don't know. You just look around and it's like, I do think it starts with that. Maybe Tom Izzo can still get a kid.
Yeah.
For a little less money.
Yeah.
A little less money.
Yeah. Because he's Tom Izzo. Exactly.
Yeah. But we're still talking Michigan State, big state, land grant university, thousands and thousands of alumni. Many of them remain in state, remain connected to the school. It's not a private university where, the graduates, a large percentage leave and go off to wherever, as happens actually here at Syracuse. It's a private school. People come from well outside the central New York area to go to Syracuse, and then they leave. And that connection isn't as, it's not as tight a bond as you see at state schools like Kentucky and Alabama and, other big states like that. Also, it helps to be in the two big conferences right now, the SEC and the Big Ten.
Yeah.
It's where the money is.
Yeah, exactly. We were talking, speaking of alumni, even with Indiana, I was surprised to read leading up to the championship game a few weeks ago that Indiana had the largest number of living alumni in the world, over 800,000. Like, well, yeah, boy, and they're, so, and the person was making the point of that really the $12 million they were going to give Signetti really is cheap compared to what he's bringing, and it broke it down. It was really kind of stunning. And I mean, just the merchandise sales alone, since they won it all, that's going to be $12 million. But speaking of football as well, how are things with Syracuse football? Kind of the same situation going on in terms of dollars and that kind of thing?
A little bit. I'll be very honest on front here. I don't cover the SU football team per se, but I live in a small town, so I read our guys' coverage. Fran Brown came in and he benefited by getting a not generational quarterback, but for a place like Syracuse, they got a great quarterback in year one in Kyle McCord. That was Fran's first year, and the schedule wasn't too awful, and they ripped off 10 wins, and Fran Brown was riding pretty high. And then last year, they thought maybe they were going to do the same thing. They're going to pull off Kyle McCord part 2, and they got Steve Angeli from Notre Dame, and he gets hurt in the third or fourth game of the year. They're leading Clemson, and he got that Achilles tendon injury. Nobody touched him. He just went down. So a team that was 3-1 didn't win again.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's also, an indicator of, okay, you had enough money to get your quarterback and some other guys around him, but you don't have the money that other schools have in terms of making sure you have the right depth. They just didn't have it. And, by the end of the year, they were just getting destroyed by some of the tougher teams. They gave up 70 points to Notre Dame.
I remember that. Yeah.
The basketball team just beat Notre Dame on Saturday and only gave up 72.
To put things in perspective, before I let you go, I want to get back to basketball. We've got, obviously a month to go and then the postseason. You followed this game for a long time and seen it change as we go through different iterations, as as we do in society. What's the one change you would make in college basketball right now to make the sport better, to make it more competitive? Is it expanding the NCAA field? Is it they're changing the portal window already till after the championship? That's a good thing.
Yes, that was a good one.
In basketball, because you're not changing semesters. I mean, that's the problem with football is you're straddling 2 semesters, so there's always going to be an issue with the calendar. What's
absolutely
you would change in terms of the what you've seen and what you've experienced, what you report on, and the great vast of knowledge that you have? What's one thing that kind of sticks out for you and say, boy, I wish they would do this?
2 things. One, I think at some point, unless you're really okay with college basketball, college sports becoming just the top 40 or 50 programs in the country and everybody else relegated to another division, you're going to have to even out the dollars. And I don't want to say the words salary cap, but, at some point, because there's certain schools that just cannot compete. And, do you really want to just dwindle down that field of schools? Because I enjoy watching college basketball. I'll come home from a game late at night and I like turning on Utah State versus Nevada.
Right.
And seeing if there's a kid there that's good. And usually there is at least one. And I I'm worried that we're seeing a continental shift here, and we're splitting apart. The other thing too is I think we have to stem the flow of players that have dabbled in college, gone to a pro league, and now are looking to return. I don't think that river should flow both ways.
Mm-hmm.
If you've done the college thing and you've had enough of it and you choose to leave, I think you've made a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe it's a little different for an international kid. We can debate that, but aside from just, I think it just gets really complicated and a little just dangerous to do it, especially when you're bringing players back mid-season, as we're seeing this year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Alabama, Baylor, a couple other places, right?
Yeah.
So I don't like the mid-year transfer almost from a G League. That's just inherently wrong. That cuts against the grain. But the other thing that's happened, it's going to happen if they allow it to keep going, is high school kids aren't going to get an opportunity to come in and play college ball they're going to have to go to junior college or prep school and all these things. I hear it all the time from coaches at high schools, coaches on AAU teams. It's like, I can't get a kid looked at. I can't get a kid looked at because all these coaches think they're going to get a transfer portal guy and all this other stuff. And it's getting harder. So I think we have to be careful of that. But those would be my two things, Larry.
Yeah, no, I would agree with both of those. And it's funny, you talked about the, at the very beginning with the player, the NBA players. I'm with you that we're going to get to a point where a kid is going to declare for the draft, not get drafted, and take whatever money that's not allowed, which I don't know what these days, how do you separate those funds, and be back in school the next year. Take the fall off and come back at Christmas break. And I went pro, but I'm back now. And I'm okay. So it's, you're right. We've got to set some kind of, House may have given you some guidelines, the House deal back in July, but we're long way away from actually having some kind of semblance here. Hey, we're out of time, Mike, but man, appreciate your time. Great to get your insights on what's going on there at Syracuse. Stay warm, as we all are trying to do, and hopefully you can find some time to talk with us again soon.
This has been great, Larry. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for having me on. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, same here. Likewise. Mike Waters joining us once again, veteran Syracuse beat writer for the Post-Standard and Syracuse.com. Great to get his insights there, what's going on with the Orange as they navigate through the tougher part of their ACC schedule coming up here in the weeks to come. All right, more conversation to come. It's a Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Everything is expensive right now. Gas, food, you name it. You're spending more, you are making the same or less money. So, what do? You rack up credit card debt. That's what you do. It's not your fault. It's the economy. And guess what? If you rack up too much credit card debt like some of us, you can't pay your bills. Then the credit card companies, as nice as they are, start hounding you for money. Then you start your downward spiral. A smart thing for you to do is to call the Zero Debt. They can help you consolidate all your credit card bills into one affordable payment. Millions of people have done it. It works to make you debt-free. Make this free call right now. It costs you nothing to learn more.
800-507-7293. 800-507-7293. 800-507-7293. That's 800-507-7293.
Okay, listen, guys, we were talking in the break. I got producer Tony and I. So, okay, Tony, heavyweight fight over the weekend. I'll let you take it from there. This is hysterical.
Gerald Miller having a heavyweight title, not a title fight, but a heavyweight fight in Madison Square Garden, the preeminent boxing, spot in America, right? So Gerald, I guess, went to go see Mom a few days before the fight, washed his hair, and the shampoo didn't agree with his hair. Now, he's African-American, and I guess the hair basically fell out. And so he bought a toupee and kind of glued it to his head. Well, if you watch the fight and you see the videos, midway through the second round, he takes a few headshots from his opponent, Uda, and his hair starts flapping up in the air. So he realizes that the toupee isn't going to work. So between the second and third round, he takes the toupee off the top of his head and chucks it into the crowd. How many times did you go to a boxing match and end up with somebody's hair in your lap?
Right. This reminds me of, and I work on this book, and I put this in the book. So I turned 40, this is many years ago. And one of my best friends from high school, my wife says, "Hey, what do you do for your 40th birthday?" I said, "No offense, nothing with you and the kids. And not that I don't love you, but I always do stuff with you and the kids. I just want to go with the boys and go play golf." It's like, okay. So pick my buddy up, Paul. We go down to Florida. And we played the whole weekend. We played Doral, PGA National. We played all the hot spots. And it's our last night. We're in South Beach hanging out. And we're about to drive back up and drop him off. He was over in South Carolina at the time. And I was in Atlanta. And so there's this guy there that looked like Super Mario, right? And there's this great cover band playing at this outer bar right there in South Beach. And whatever song they began singing was his. He looked like he just came from a construction site. It was his jam. It was his groove. He's dancing with these young girls. All of a sudden he reaches up, pulls off his toupee, and begins whipping it like it's a towel, like in the air over his head. To this day, we're like, Super Mario, he's got a toupee. So that reminds me of that story. Okay, listen, it is Super Bowl week, and always stories have nothing to do with football. What's your best Super Bowl related story from your CNN days?
When we were at CNN one year, I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. We're playing the Cowboys in Atlanta at the game. And so a couple of the Buffalo Bills we had heard at CNN were going to be at the Hawks game. They were playing that Wednesday night before the contest.
Uh-huh.
Well, somebody in our office said, "Hey, you're a Bills fan and you're also producing Inside the NBA. You got the little card that'll get you into any Hawks game. Why don't you go over and see if you can get one of them to come and be on our show on Sports Tonight?" And I'm like, "Really? What am I going to offer them? Like a bag of cookies to come over?" It's like, "Do we got anything? Do we got any swag?" We didn't have any swag in the place, nothing. So I go over to the Hawks Arena and I'm sitting there on press row and I'm watching and I'm looking. I finally see in like row 1, 2, wherever, there's Bruce Smith and Thurman Thomas.
Okay.
So I go over and introduce myself with CNN Sports, Tony Cordero. Wondering if you guys want to come on our show at 11:30 tonight. Bruce Smith blows me off, right? Like, "You gotta be kidding me. What is Sports Night?" And he goes, No. Thurman's like, "No, that's Nick and Fred show. I've told you about that." He goes, "Man, I'm going back to the hotel." Bruce is like, "I'm out of here when the game's over." Thurman agreed to stay and came over and actually did part of the show. And we later joked about it because I actually went to Iraq with him back in the early 2010s as part of a USO thing. And we were actually joking about that to this day, of him coming over and doing the show for us on CNN Sports.
It's funny. And actually, that happened a lot with CNN because everybody came to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And you never knew who was going to walk. Remember, one time I was looking around, not Super Bowl related, but Joe Barry Carroll, the former Purdue Golden State center, turns out he grew up with a guy who was doing an Army internship. And my first year there, I look up and here's this guy who's my height, 5'9", 5'10". And here comes Joe Barry Carroll behind him. He goes, "Hey, JB's in town." And I told him you were here to say hi. And I'm like, "Oh, this is, you never knew who was going to walk in." It was nuts. But the whole USA Olympic softball team came in '96. They had done something and they said, "Hey, we're the sports department." They came down and signed autographs, took pictures, and you never knew who was going to come through.
Yeah, we always had people coming through there. Some were surprises, some weren't. Some you'd like go, "Who is that?" And you had to have somebody tell you like which athlete, especially if they were some like from a more obscure sport and not, one of the main four stick and ball sports. But yeah, there were always people coming through there and you get a chance to meet them and say hello and talk. It was always fun. It was always a nice atmosphere. So yeah.
Yeah, it was one Super Bowl story. We'll share a lot of them this week. I was down. I wasn't even covering it. I used to go to the Super Bowl to go play golf and party, and just for 3 or 4 days, just with buddies. Down in Miami, it was the year of the Falcons, Broncos, Eugene Robinson, the arrest the night before the game, all that. I guess that would have been Elway's last year. Walking in front of Versace's mansion. This is right after he was shot and killed there, right? Looking up with some friends and coming the other way, looking up and staring, bumping into each other was Jamie Foxx. And
oh, wow.
He watched the show. He was, at the time, now that we know in hindsight, he was filming Any Given Sunday. And it was cool. So we dapped each other. "Hey, how you doing? It's great. Good to see you. Hey, you looking good," and whatever. And we both walked our separate ways. And the people with me said, "Man, Jamie Foxx?" I'm like, "No, it's a brother thing, man. It's just, it's to say hey and, so that's all it was." But it was funny. I saw Jamie 3 or 4 times after that. Always spoke. We always said hi. What's going on? And it was, but it was funny. It's one of those random things of CNN sports anchor and big movie star pumping each other in front of
Yep.
our mansion. So anyway,
That's cool. I like that.
funny story. We'll share more stories this week as we get closer to Sunday. Okay, our moment of pause is up next.
Hey, airline travelers, let's say you have a problem and you need to change or cancel an existing airline reservation. What do? Well, Skywatch is a free service that can help anyone with any airline reservation fix it. Whether you want to cancel it, change your dates, or add passengers, we can help fix your airline reservations so you get exactly what you need. We've updated our computer database and now have access to every airline around the globe. So now you can make one phone call regardless of who booked your airline tickets, and we'll change it, cancel it, and fix it for you. We know the insider secrets to fixing reservations that the airlines don't want you to know about. So if you need to cancel, change, or modify an existing airline reservation, call Skywatch right now. It's a free call, so let us fix it for you. 800-413-7158. 800-413-7158. 800-413-7158. That's 800-413-7158.
Okay, time now for a moment of awe. And it was on this day back in 1959 when the fortunes of the Green Bay Packers changed. They hired a new head coach named, you guessed it, Vince Lombardi. February 2nd, 1959. In 9 seasons, Lombardi going 89 wins, only 29 losses, 4 ties. That's a 750 win percentage. He won 5 NFL titles, including the first 2 Super Bowls. Hard to believe he was only there for a decade. Feels like he was there for an eternity. But Vince Lombardi on this day gets our moment of awe. Thanks so much for joining us today. Great guests. We appreciate Matt Stevens. We appreciate Mike Waters as well, talking Syracuse basketball. And always appreciate you. It's Monday here on the Sports IQ. Make it a great one, and we'll see you tomorrow right here.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.